And I picked up the phone. I said, hello. And she says, in for $1, in for the score. And she goes, let's go. And I'm like, what? And she goes, we got the verdict tomorrow.
So tell me about yourself.
Mid-50s, photojournalist, computer engineer, pretty much an all-around guy.
How did you get into photojournalism?
Photojournalism, ever since I took up my first Polaroid camera, 13, 14 years old, and then from the analog to the digital, and then from concerts and just walking around with a camera to working for publications, and just like what I do, telling the story one click at a time.
So, explain the Michell Carter case, or the death of Conrad Roy.
Okay, so this is going back quite a few years ago now. I remember hearing the call come across on the police scanner, and again, a body in a vehicle, probably commonplace in New Bedford or in a big city in Fall River, but places of Fairhaven, not so common. So I called my editor, and my editor said, run with it. And so I grabbed the initial photos, and then next thing you know, I think it was like months later, they were interviewing Michelle, and they had, I guess they had subpoenaed her phone records, his phone records, and they realized that it was not exactly a suicide as originally they had thought. I don't know if the case had been closed or whatever, but they were looking at additional factors in the case, and they charged her. And I remember them charging her, and my editor saying, "We're on this circus now," and off to Taunton we went, and we were part of 4 photographers, pool photographers. And the way that works is they only allow 1 photographer in the courtroom for that day. And so we'd been cycling through days, and I was the Wednesday guy, then I was the Thursday guy, and then I remember being in court for closing arguments, the second or third day of closing arguments, and it was I believe it was a 3-day weekend coming up. I'm not sure. I think it was the 3-day weekend coming up, and I remember specifically the judge saying, "This case has gone on long enough. Both families have been grieving. There's a lot at stake here. I'm not going to make my decision in haste, but I'm also not going to make them wait any longer." And I looked at my editor and I said, "It's going to be a Friday verdict." The judge, because she had waived her jury trial, so it was up to one judge, and I knew that judge was going to call it on Friday. So every day my editor would wait, impatiently by the phone, 2 o'clock, no call. So that meant there was no verdict. The next day, 2 o'clock, no verdict. So then it came to Thursday, and I was working, I forget where I was working, I was doing something, and I almost didn't answer the phone. And I looked at the phone, it was like 10 past 2, and I picked up the phone, I said, hello, and she goes, let's go. And I'm like, what? And she goes, we got the verdict tomorrow.
How did it feel to have your picture used worldwide on all?
So when the images happened, so it was the week before, I handed the card to my editor, and she uploaded the images to a laptop, and then we had to scurry. I think that week she used her phone as her hotspot, and she uploaded them to the AP, and then the AP used them. And to me, it didn't really mean anything. Like, my photos were being used at the Standard Time, the Boston Globe, the Sun Herald, the local papers. Well, the longer the case drew out, the more worldwide attention it got. And freedom of speech versus, protected speech, and so on and so forth. And it's like if I tell you to go play in traffic and you get hit by a car, does that make me negligent or second-degree murder because I told you to go play in traffic? She literally told him, get back in the truck and finish the job, and that's what killed him. So it wasn't until the verdict call where we decided not to use our hotspot because it took way too long. We ran across the way to the library, and stuck the card in and and got the right images. And then the AP guy was there, and he pulled me over to the laptop, and he said, "You see this number?" And it was counting, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. And I was like, "Oh, was that the number of times my photo's been viewed?" And he said, "No, that's the number of publications that are picking it up for their either printed news edition or digital news edition." He goes, "Follow me." And we walked over to the library's computer, and he said, "Type in a website." So I typed in, standardtimes.com, and up came my picture. And he says, it's breaking news. He goes, "Think bigger." So I went, "Oh, Boston.com." There was my image. He goes, "Think bigger." So then I went USAtoday.com, and he just kind of shook his head. He goes, "Not that rag." And he goes, "Think bigger." And I'm like, CNN. And there was Donald Trump going on about the wall, about the Mexicans building the wall. And I was like, "Oh, did I think too big?" And he goes, "Refresh the page." And it was a simple click of F5, and there was my image. I had replaced Donald Trump in his wall. And I thought, well, that's something for Donald to tweet about later. And then he said, "Think even bigger." And I'm like, "What's bigger?" And he goes, "Go to the AP website." And there it was. It was like the photo of the day. And unbeknownst to me, my photo was one of 10 selected for photo of the week. And it's still viewable. You can Google, photo of the week, and then type in the day. And then there's my photo. And I'm there with pictures of Nigeria and pictures of world hunger pictures and great photographers around the world. And there's my photo right besides them. It just opened up a lot of doors, whereas normally I was just another photographer. It gave me credence to my work. And one day I just happened to be in Boston, a favorite city of mine that I like to walk around and just take photos. And there was a State House, and I was shooting the State House from the outside, and there were a bunch of protesters. And then next thing you know, I'm inside the State House with the protesters, and I bumped into someone that's not there anymore. He was the governor's press secretary. And I bumped into him, and we were talking, and I says, "How do I, what do you do?" And he told me, and he goes, "What do you do?" And I told him, and next thing you know, and he says, "Gee," I says, "How do I get on the press pool?" And he says, "Well, gee," he says, "we would have to credential you, but you obviously need good credentials to get credentialed for the State House." And next thing you know, I mentioned the Michell Carter photo, and he was like, "Wait, that's yours?" And he said, "Come with me." And I went down into the press room with all the guys and everybody, and he was like, this is the guy that caught the Michell Carter case." And next thing you know, 2 weeks later, I was getting my picture taken, and I was picking up my ID, and that was 3 years ago now, so.
Explain the award you received.
So I received an NFR, a New England Press Association Award. It's an award ceremony similar to the Emmys or the Oscars, but it's for news journalism, for all journalism actually, and it's held in Boston once a year. And my editor notified me that we were in the running. We got first, second, or third place, so we went up to the award ceremony. It's like a 5-hour show, and the big awards were right at the end, and we were up for one of the big awards, and we just happened to win first place, which pretty much cemented my photo as being a big deal. It was just an incredible opportunity to be up against those type of photos.